Hey everyone, this is the Wealth Building Educator. I really appreciate you for continuing to rock with me. Today we're going to do a video kind of talking about millennials and how it's not too late for them to build wealth. Okay, so let's get into it. Okay, wealth building for millennials. It's not too late to start. Millennials are behind previous generations when it comes to building wealth, but they can still catch up. Millennials have been dubbed the lost generation because of how far behind they are on building wealth compared to older generations at this stage of their lives. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis reported that millennials, especially those born in the 80s, would accumulate less wealth during their lives overall. These predictions come at the heels of the collective experience of unfavorable macroeconomic trends and economic instability that the generation has faced. It's safe to say that millennials who fall between the ages of 26 and 40 have had far from smooth sailing when it comes to building wealth. A sizable chunk of millennials graduated college at the start of the 2008 financial crisis and bore the brunt of an economic meltdown right when they were entering the job market. The last decade has seen a widening wealth gap with the younger generations clustering at the bottom. Many things can be blamed for the rise of inequality: student loan debt burdens, increased cost of living, high housing costs, and stagnant wages. Now largely indebted and delayed in building their careers, being a millennial is almost synonymous with having money anxiety. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit. So it says many things can be blamed: student loan debt burdens. We all know that the student loan deal right now is a hot button topic, right? So we understand that there are so many millennials right now that are just drowning in student loan debt. And I attribute a lot of that to the fact that our parents really pushed the whole college deal on many of us. And for a lot of us, it was the first time anyone in our families would be going to college. So it was like a non-negotiable, like we had to go to college by any means necessary. It didn't mean, or it didn't matter if the degree was in psychology, it didn't matter if it was in biology, if it was in mathematics, it just didn't matter what the degree was in. And we just had to do it. So some people wanted to get away and go to prestigious universities. Some people want to go to private universities, and you just didn't necessarily think about the cost. It just by any means necessary. So that's why one of the reasons why the student loan crisis is actually the crisis it is. In addition to the fact that private loan companies and the government, in addition, they just give a bunch of money to 18 and 19-year-olds because they know they're going to get that money back, because we all know that student loan debt is not bankruptable, except for in very few cases, such as long-term disability and things like that. So increased cost of living, absolutely. You know, it's harder to attain home ownership at this point for a lot of millennials, especially in the past year and a half, 2 years, with the rising housing costs. And of course, the rent has exploded. It's just out of control rental rates in various cities nationwide. Stagnant wages, you know, obviously the wages do not necessarily rise at the rate of the cost of living. Bottom line, plain and simple. And it says now largely indebted and delayed in building their careers, being a millennial is almost synonymous with having money anxiety. The economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic has again presented many millennials with more financial difficulties and introduced another type of crisis, a growing collective discontent leading to what many are calling the Great Resignation. These events threaten to push this generation permanently off course when it comes to building wealth. So I think what's happening, obviously, is it's a point now where you have varying groups of individuals who are working. So you have those really hard workers, those, you know, guys and gals who get out there and they bust it, right? They do a great job for the companies, but they never feel valued. And they feel like the low man, the low woman on a totem pole. They feel like no matter what they do, that they will never get the credit for it, and they will never get the pay that they feel they deserve. And I did an interview with Rakeem Sabri earlier, and he was one of these guys. He did a viral resignation, and he was cheered on by thousands of people. And of course, there were some people who hated him for it. Like, why would you hate somebody for resigning from a job that made them miserable and tested their mental fortitude every single day? You know, but he did what he felt he had to do. And he has since been thriving out on his own, away from that particular job. So how can you blame somebody for that? He's not the only one. There are people in various careers who are just resigning and walking away because they don't feel like they're valued, and they feel like, you know, whatever time they're putting in is not necessarily being reciprocated. So let's look at the next part, how it starts to talk about how there's time to catch up. Millennials had gradually started to recover from the decade-long struggle following the 2008 economic crisis. As early as 2018, the Pew Research Center showed that working adults in this generation earned more than young adult households did in the past 50 years. The reason for this growth in household earnings was that millennial women were working more and being paid more than women in previous years. Though millennials have faced another setback largely due to the economic fallout of the COVID-19 pandemic, if previous recoveries are any indication, they can still catch up. I am of the belief that as long as you are breathing, you have time to improve your financial situation. Now, will everybody become a millionaire? That's not likely. However, everybody has the ability to improve. I'm not saying that everybody will improve, because there are so many varying factors of when it comes to wealth building. You know, while I do believe that we are ultimately the ones who will either be able to, you know, pull ourselves out of financial ruin or continue to, you know, struggle financially. Ultimately, it you know, it's up to us. At the same time, there are so many different factors that contribute to whether or not we are successful. So I'll never be one of those guys that just says, hey, you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and you can be a millionaire. No, I know that there are factors that are out of our control. I know at the same time that until I decided to get my family out of the financial ruin that I, as a man, put my family in, we weren't going to be successful, you know. And once I decided and had that conversation with myself, then and only then were we successful as a family. So let's talk about some tips on how millennials can build wealth. Regardless of the setbacks, wealth building and having enough retirement savings is not elusive for millennials. So one of the ways they talk about is to take advantage of the power of compounding. So one of my biggest regrets I'll have forever is that I did not start investing sooner. And I was in the camp where I was taught that you don't invest while you're in debt. It's a double-edged sword, right? So the longer or the more you're investing, the longer you're going to be in debt. Let me say that again. The more you invest, the longer you will be in debt. At the same time, the more you pay off debt, the less you can invest up front. But the quicker you get out of debt, and the quicker you get out of debt, the more you can invest later on. So compounding works. It can work for you or against you. You know, if you're paying 18, 19, 20% in credit cards, then you're making 10 to 12% on your investments. Does it make sense to, you know, invest before paying off this debt? No. So I truly believe that I did the right thing by getting rid of all my debt prior to investing at the same time, it put me behind the 8 ball with investing. But ultimately, that's my fault because I got into debt. Had I stayed out of debt, maybe I could have started investing a lot sooner. So for instance, my 15-year-old son, he has a job. He makes about $9.50, $10 an hour. And we have made him put 50% of every dime that he has brought home into a Roth IRA with Fidelity. And that is the norm in our household. So we want him to know that as long as he works, you need to live on 50% of your income and invest the rest. But he's starting at a very young age so that the power of compound interest and dividends, that's going to work in his favor. And if you stay out of debt, the sky's the limit. You could be a millionaire by the time you're 30 years old or 35 years old just by that. Learn from the mistakes of your dad and learn from the mistakes of your mom and just do a lot better than we have ever done. So that's what we're working on right now. So definitely you got to take advantage of the power of compounding, but you also need to try to stay out of debt. Exchange traded funds as a wealth building tool. For those who want to invest but have no idea where to start, it's still possible to start building wealth using exchange traded funds, also known as ETFs, similar to an index fund. And an ETF is a compilation of a series of stocks and or bonds as an investment tool that lets you invest in the market as a whole. My favorite ETF, you look at VTI, which is the ETF version of my absolute favorite index fund in the world, which is VTSAX, which, it's like a total stock market index fund and a total stock market ETF. And these, to me, are very well diversified. So you aren't throwing all your money or throwing all your eggs in one basket. You are throwing all your eggs and spreading them out in about 3,500 stocks. So if one goes belly up, it's okay. You have these over here that are possibly exploding. So we in the FIRE community, we really love ETFs and we love index funds, very broad-based index funds. And as it says here, ETFs, over time, the value will grow, especially ones that track the overall stock market. And that's the one we just spoke about when we talked about VTI. For instance, you could buy an ETF that tracks the S&P 500. If you put $100 a month in an ETF and don't touch it, then $100 a month is $1,200 a year, which starts to become more tangible. So let's say you get those 10% average returns. Every year, you're going to compound 10% on top of that. And by the time, before you know it, it's exploded. And there are so many different companies out there where you can buy these things from. I recommend Vanguard. My next recommendation personally will be Fidelity. Schwab is phenomenal, but like it says in the article, you also have those robo-advisors like Wealthfront and Betterment. And you can also buy these ETFs through M1 Finance, which is a company that I just became involved with within the last month. And I'm really pleased with what I see so far, but very easy to split your money, split your investments into various pies that they have on their website. It's like, investing for dummies, basically. Think long-term for your career. Gallup reports that more than 36% of the US workforce, around 57.3 million people, participate in the gig economy. And millennials make up the largest chunk of gig workers. As more millennials value their autonomy and traditional full-time jobs with benefits become harder to come by, the gig economy is expected to continue to grow. There are many advantages to being a freelancer, but it also comes with its drawbacks, some being the fickle nature of your income source and a lack of benefits like a 401k and health insurance. There's less financial security for freelancers and gig economy workers. For a chance at wealth building, freelancers need to not just work for themselves, but also build a business. Many freelancers are solopreneurs living from invoice to invoice. So I am in the camp where I was always taught to go out there, get a job, get a career, whatever, and do the best job that you can do in that career. And now I am seeing, as I get older, that's very important. So if you want to be an entrepreneur and do those things, fine. You need to obviously do your research and know what you're doing. At the same time, I understand that it is vital to get with an employer and stick with that employer. So for instance, I've been with my current employer for 12 years. We are in the Texas teacher retirement system. So when I calculate my retirement pension, the numbers look very good. So we know that in 2033, we can retire with these various pension amounts, enough money without even touching any of our Roth or 403B or 457 investments. We'll have more than enough money being debt-free to live for the rest of our lives. However, we have been offered other opportunities outside of Texas. We have been tempted by other opportunities outside of Texas. But when you recalculate all of these pensions that we be getting, we found that the more you move, the worse impact it will have financially on your retirement plan. So in our particular situation, it's very important to just stay put within the Texas TRS because we can get to retirement quicker. So I'll be around 53 and a half when I retire, as opposed to had I moved to Atlanta like I wanted to about 2 or 3 years ago, then I'm looking at pushing that retirement horizon out to about 59 or 60 years old. To me, it wasn't worth it. If you're 12 years from retirement, why would you push that out to 18 years? It's just no way I was going to do it. So I just believe in making sure you perfect what you're doing and do the best you can at your particular position and in your particular role and in your current role, and just, riding it out, but being successful and highly pleased with what you are doing. I would never advocate for anybody to stay in a role that is mentally stressing them out and something that's making them miserable and they just hate going to work every day. But find your passion, find something you enjoy to do, and try to stay in that particular position or within that particular retirement plan or system for as long as you can. So, but hey, for now, that is the end of this video. I really appreciate you all checking it out. Please continue to, rock with the channel. I appreciate the support. Like, share, subscribe, do whatever you have to do to share this content with others, because I do believe that ultimately having these conversations about money will lift up our communities, nationwide. And I get quite a bit of feedback from people who just reach out and ask me questions, and I enjoy coaching others to help them become prominent and become wealthy and be able to retire early. Okay. So thank you all very much. You all have a phenomenal and fabulous day.